Hello guys, this is Malhotra, CPA. Welcome to my show for tax saving and money making ideas. Today we're going to talk about CARES Act. There are a lot of issues going on with a lot of confusion after this pandemic. So I wanted to clear some of those. I'm going to talk about some loan options with the federal government and also some credits that would be very important when you file your 2020 returns. I'll talk a little bit about some employee retention credit. You might want to talk to your CPA and advisor about those credits when you file 2020 return. Qualified paid and sick leave credit is called EPSLA. Qualified family leave credit is expanded FMLA. FMLA has been in for a long time. Delay in payment on employer payroll taxes, paying student loan deductions, and then there are some amendment opportunity for anybody who has a C corporation and then they would like to go use the net operating carry over net operating loss for carrying forward and carrying back. I would cover that. Now, very important thing, EIDL and PPP. There is a lot of confusion, so I would cover that. So now let's start with the EIP payment. That is the one I still see a lot of people have a lot of confusion. EIP payment is the stimulus check that a lot of people have received recently. It's called economic impact payment. So it's $1,200 for each individual. If you're filing jointly, you get $2,400. If you're filing single, you get $1,200, and if you are a head of household, you get $1,200. For any dependent, you get $500 each additional. There are some planning opportunities for those people, even if they have received the payment, and some people who have not received the payment, you might want to consider. So how do you get paid? If anybody who is single and makes $75,000, they get full $1,200. If they have any dependent, they get $500 for that dependent. Now, dependent they have to have a social security number, not the tax ID number, and that dependent has to be 17 years or younger if you have any child. Now, but there is some income requirement. If you are a single, if your income is less than 75,000, you get full amount. But as you make more money, this stimulus payment will be reduced. And there's a chart in IRS website. You can go and look for it, and you can PM me, and I'll definitely leave a message and I'll give you that chart as well. Anybody who is making more than $98,000 and $99,000, they do not get any stimulus payment if they are filing as a single. Now let's talk about the married filing jointly. If you're married filing jointly, if you make $150,000 or less, you get full $2,400 plus any dependent $500 for each additional dependent, qualifying dependent. If you make more than $198,000, you do not get any money. Anybody who makes $150,000 to $198,000, the credit or this amount EIP is reduced as the income goes up. So there's a chart and table, as I said. I can put it under on my message box. Now, you might want to make sure there is some planning thing that you could do. If anybody who are eligible in 2018 and 2019, they would get that payment regardless. But let's say if they are not eligible in 2018 and 19, but they are eligible in 2020, when they file the 2020 return, they will get that stimulus payment next year. Anybody who is not eligible in 2018 because of the higher income, but 2019, make sure you file that return ASAP, so you would get that stimulus payment in your bank account. Person who is not eligible in 2019, but he was eligible in 2018, then you might want to delay 2019. I'm sure you might have got it by now, or you will be getting it. But make sure you do not file 2019 return. You might want to delay until July 15, the IRS deadline, and you will get that payment. For some of those people who are also, they file their tax return, their bank account has been changed or bank account has been closed. There is a link It's on my company website as well, northeastsolution.com. You can click that link and update your record and inform the IRS that your bank account has been closed. If the IRS has already deposited in your bank account and it came back, they will issue a check. So no need to panic. You will get that payment in your mailbox. But I would recommend you to go online and update that account. If you have a wrong bank account in 2018 and you have not got the payment, make sure you file 2019 ASAP with the correct bank information and you will get your money. But there are some planning opportunities for the people who have dependent. If you have a dependent and you do not get much of the benefit in 2019, you have make sure they file separate, not dependent on you. That way they can get a stimulus payment full $1,200. So talk to your tax advisor, who you work with, and get those things, so you get the maximum advantage legally for those plans. Now, let's talk about some of those credits. These are very important. So let's talk about some people who have a student loan. If you have a student loan, it's basically bank is not going to take deduction until couple of months, right? So this basically kind of deferred now. So you do not have to do anything. It's automatically by default. Now, unemployment. If you are unemployed, make sure you file unemployment with New Jersey State. Talk to any labor attorney, labor law specialist in your area. Who do you know? They can help you, or either anybody who knows how to file. But if you are self-employed, and previously you never eligible, but self-employed people also eligible for $600 per month, meaning you are driving Uber, you are a contractor, right? You can still get. People ask me, can I get the PPP payment and EIDL and take this payment? Yes, you can, but when you get the PPP payment, you might have to pay them back. Right? So there are some advantages. You just need to be careful and tell the truth in the application. So there are also a PDF on New Jersey State website you can download, and there is specific direction you need to follow to get that. So make sure you file it correctly, especially when you are self-employed, and you need to file it in a way so New Jersey State will know that you are self-employed and they pay you $600 per month. All right, let's talk about the employee retention credit. It's very important credit. When you file 2020 return and you do not get PPP loan or EIDL, you are eligible for employee retention credit up to $10,000. And this is a very huge opportunity for people to get the money back if you're paying those employees. Up to $10,000 when you file your tax return, talk to your tax advisor, CPA, to get this money back in your pocket. If the credit is 50% of qualifying wages and up to $10,000 in total credit for small businesses. So make sure that wages should be paid after March 12, 2020 and before January 1st, 2021. So they are eligible for this credit. And that's very important that you do talk to your CPA or tax advisor for this. Another important topic, wages taken into account are not limited to cash payment, but also include a portion of cost of employer provided healthcare. So let's say you have your total wages is less than $10,000, but you pay for healthcare, you can add that portion to here to get up to $10,000 credit. Okay, so, and the qualified sick leave credit and also family leave credit. So $200 per day. These are very important credits. So qualified self-employment sick leave credit is $511 a day for any employee. Just a tip here, any employer who have an employee affected by COVID-19, they are required to pay them. It does not mean that you lost that money. You will get that money back as a credit when you file 2020 return. If you are self-employed and you are advised to stay home or quarantine for some, if healthcare professional advise you to do that, or either government advise you to be quarantined for some issues, you can get up to $511 per day for 10 days maximum. It's $5,110 in your pocket when you file your return. It's a credit. It's up to $511, meaning if you are self-employed and you make average $300 a day is $3,000 credit when you file your 2020 return. Family leave credit, if you are affected and you need to take care of your child because schools are closed, so $200 per day, that credit when you file your 2020 return, its credit can be up to $10,000 aggregate amount, right? So make sure you do talk to your advisor. Now, charity, now you are eligible to take $300 deduction for charity without itemizing. It's above the line deduction. It used to be if you're itemizing, that's the only time you can take the charitable deduction, but now you can take $300 deduction for charity without itemizing it. Now let's talk about the PPP and EIDL. PPP is Paycheck Protection Plan and EIDL is Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Most of us know by now that Congress has issued $398 billion for this account, and most of the money has been exhausted. Now they are trying to issue additional $250 billion for next round of payment to small businesses, to make sure you are on the line. Now, how do you determine? PPP, especially Paycheck Protection Plan as it sounds, meaning if you have employees and then you're paying wages to them, if you are self-employed people, you are also eligible for PPP. You need to look at Schedule C, line 31. Right? If you make $100,000, let's say on line 31, after taking all the expenses, you can divide it by 12 and then multiply it by 2.5. So let's say that $10,000, for example, $8,000 or $8,500 per month multiplied by 2.5. So you can be eligible up to $23,000 only from your self-employed earning. On top of that, you can add any cost to your health insurance, any retirement plan, any lease payment. If you have a mortgage that you have taken before COVID-19, February 15, that interest to that mortgage is also can be added to PPP plan. The good thing about the PPP plan that it's forgivable. It can be forgiven as long as you spend 75% of the money towards payroll. For self-employed people, it's a no-brainer. You're going to spend that money anyways, because you are self-employed and you have no income, you need to pay yourself. If you have employees, just make sure those employees are on your books, meaning you're paying them. Now, another thing is for people who get PPP loan, they cannot defer self-employment taxes. As you might know, the Congress came up with, under CARES Act, you can defer employer portion of self-employment tax. You don't have to make the payment, but if you get a PPP loan, you keep making those payments, especially. Now, PPP loan, another important thing that is limited to is up to $10 million you can take, and your employees has to be less than, and if you have less than 500 employees, you are eligible. Up to 6 months, there's no payment. After 6 months, it's 0.5% for 2 years. So it's a short-term loan versus EIDL is a long-term, 30 years. So if you take the loan, but most of the time PPP loan would be forgiven as long as you pay to those employees. If you do not pay it, it can be converted to a regular loan and interest is 0.5%, and then you have to pay back in 2 years. In the same thing, if you go to the EIDL, the loan amount is $2 million, not like $10 million in PPP, it's $2 million. But now here's the good thing. You never have to provide your previous tax return. You do not have to sign a personal guarantee up to $200,000. The loan amount could be up to $2 million, and that can be added a lot of other items than only payroll, and then your your taxes, your insurance and retirement, some other lease and mortgage and all those. Here you can add a lot more things, and you take the bigger loan from the bank. And that is, as I said, it's not forgivable, but here's the catch. If you pay from EIDL to your employees, that can be rolled over to PPP and can be forgiven. So if you get $200,000 and then you pay $10,000 in wages, $25,000 can be forgiven. Not exact 25, but approximate a gross number can be forgiven. So get that loan, EIDL. If you see PPP is getting too much complicated for you, just get the EIDL. Self-employment people who are Schedule C, look at your line 31. You are eligible for PPP loan. talk to bankers, especially I would say talk to small banks. Big banks are busy with other things. Now remember this thing, this loan is given by the federal government. Banks are only administrators. Banks are not the lender. Initially you might have seen those, they were fighting against like how much the loan interest amount would be. Previously came with a 4%, then they came up with the, I think 1%, then it's 0.5%. So banks are not very happy because they are giving that loan for the lower amount, right? They are only administering the loan, they are not the lender here. So they are very liberal requirements. So please make sure you get those paperwork in order. What you need for PPP is basically your last year payroll records, anything that you can show that you're paying for the employee, your healthcare cost, and if you're self-employed, your own health insurance premium would be added. If you have a retirement plan, your profit sharing that you're giving to employees or giving to yourself, if you're an S corporation, that can be lumped in. So, and then if you're renting a place, right, that rent can be added in PPP loan, right? If you have a mortgage on the business, and the mortgage interest can be added on the PPP loan, and that can be forgiven. So just work it out with your tax advisor. If you do not know, go call SBA. They pick up the phone call, but it's long queue, and they will guide you through how to process the loan application. Now let's talk about what about the forgivable portion on self-employed people. So if you, let's say, how do they calculate whatever amount is on line 31 on your Schedule C, and if you're a self-employed individual, the bank will eventually divide that number by 52 weeks and multiply it by 8 weeks. That amount will be forgiven for self-employed people. So what I say, if you make, let's say, $120,000 divided by 52 weeks and multiplied by 8 weeks, that amount will be forgiven. It's not that simple calculation. You have 120,000, 10,000 per month multiplied by, you can calculate that number multiplied per month multiplied by 2.5 and based on how much money you can get. But the forgivable calculation is totally different. They multiplied by 8 weeks, just to let you know, guys. All right, now let's talk about something for the bank, what kind of bank you should be working with. So as I said, talk to a small banker, any community bank nearby who you know, especially if you know someone in the bank, that would be plus. So they can help you to get your process. What happened to the previous people who have submitted the application? It does not mean that they are not going to process it. It's just if they are able to get your spot secured on SBA, you will get it. It's just a matter of time, right? So if you haven't heard anything from your bank, it does not mean that you're not on the line. It's just that means as long as they secure your spot, they won't tell you, but there's a number is allotted to you on your loan, and that's pretty much it. They will ask any more documentation. What documentation you would be providing it to them? Ask your accountant last year of your payroll records. If you are self-employed, you need to Schedule C. Now, here's the catch for self-employed people. You need to get Schedule C for 2019, not 2018. It's not a very clear what actually the guidelines are, but I'll tell you, even if it's a draft, just make sure you prepare your Schedule C. What about partnership? Partnership, you need to look for the K1, self-employed income. Any income that you're paying self-employment tax on. Now, another thing, in a partnership, not each employer will apply for PPP. Partnership is going to apply for PPP loan. One partnership is going to apply for all the partners who is getting self-employed income. Can you add, if the partnership also have employees, can you add that employees cost? Yes, you can. So the partners K1, self-employment income portion, and the any employees. So look at your 941 or 940, that annual payroll return. So you add that number and PPP. Now another thing is if you are a self-employed individual in a partnership, any health insurance cost also can be added on PPP application. But if you choose to go for EIDL, and if your banker advises you to go for EIDL for a little bit easier process, go for it. And then eventually roll that portion over to PPP and get this loan forgiven. So there are multiple things you could do. Just work on with your banker, or talk to your tax advisor. He should be able to help you on that. That's it for now. I wish you all the best for this process, and stay safe. May God bless you. I'll talk to you soon.